right, guys, welcome back to Break at the Apex, the best Formula One podcast in the world, which, as I've said before, is a bit biased, but I mean, you either agree with it or you don't. If you do, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, I still hope you're here next week because, I mean, I'm sure we're still worth something. So we are here to discuss the Austrian GP, and it was a banger of a race. It was an absolute banger of a race. So we've got loads of things to get through. So let's get into it. BT, before we start, let's just get the boring stuff out the way, right? How are you doing?
I'm good. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I won't lie, guys. I did forget to press record. So we are both good, but we've also had this conversation already. And now I've just heard that BT is still good.
Yes.
So it doesn't change my life at all, but at least you guys know that BT is good and that I'm good. So let's get into this. But before we move on, if you guys are watching on Spotify, please could you give us a good 5-star review? I know it's a bit greedy to ask for 5 stars, but our moms have told us that we very handsome men. So like if the content is not good enough, at least our faces might be. So just 5 stars is worth something. You know what I mean? So please give us that 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, just smash that subscribe button. Some good content coming your way. We've got YouTube shorts happening. We've got the podcast, and there'll be other content along the way at some point. For now, the podcast is what we need to focus on and what we would love you guys to subscribe for. So please smash that subscribe button, and while you're there, give us a like as well. It does help a lot, more than you guys may imagine. And I've got lots of bills to pay, so does BT, so it really does help a lot. Great. Now, I feel like I've spoken a lot now, like my throat is getting dry. So let's just get straight into it. No beating around the bush. Yeah. I can't even talk English. No beating around the bush. Let's get straight into our top 3. Guys, if you don't know what that is, top 3 is basically when I give you my top 3, BT will give you his top 3, and together we will mash them up together and we will make a top 3 at the end of the day, which gets points, which goes to a point system. And at the end of the year, we will crown our world championship based on this. Now, there is a little bit of an asterisk here. Max Verstappen only counts for top 3 if he starts back beyond 10 or something. You know what I mean? Because obviously he has an unfair advantage. Which I know the Max fans are going to jump on me for that. I'm a Max fan too, guys, so please calm down. It is the truth. He has an unfair advantage. His car's a super galactic rocket ship thing from SpaceX. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, cool. BT, I'm going to give you my top 3. It's Norris, Perez, Leclerc. You can give me your top 3, and then we can get into our discussion. Hit me.
Okay, so mine is Norris, Stroll, and Sainz. That's mine.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna just paint this picture for you. So I've been saying all along that Stroll is like a very underrated driver, and for those of you who have watched, you probably have noticed that. I've also been telling BT for the longest time, who is a Ferrari fan, by the way. I've been telling him for the longest time that Sainz is better than Leclerc, and I didn't think that he would ever put the 2 of these people on the top 3, because unless they did something really extravagant. Anyways, I'm going to give you my explanations. I'm very shocked. I'm not going to lie, but let's move into it. So Norris, there's nothing, we don't need to say anything about that. We both agree with Norris at number 1. So good job, Norris. And then let's move on to my second picking was Perez. Now, this is a tough one for me, because Perez kind of like Ferrari last week, where we said Ferrari was the number 2 of the weekend because they're so impressive. They impressed us. And my thing then was they shouldn't be impressing us, though. Like, they should be there. You know what I mean? Like, it's Ferrari. And Perez is like that for me. Yes, he started 12th, but I can almost assure you if Max started 12th, he would have still won the race, because that's just what he's done in the past. And in that car, you kind of expect that Perez would be on the podium. But if you look at Spain and Monaco and all those places where he also started 12th, 13th, he didn't even make it to the podium. So it was a little bit impressive for me that he did actually make it this time around. And if I'm really honest with you, he was quite under the radar because he didn't really seem to be doing anything extravagant, but he just ended up popping up here in P3, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. So for me, Perez, because well done. He made it onto the podium. And then the third place was Leclerc. So Leclerc's tough, not a tough one for me. I really think Sainz was better on the day. The difference, though, is that Sainz had the track limits, 2 penalties from it, one before the race, one during the race, one after the race. We'll get into that later. Because of that, I've gone with Leclerc, because let's be honest, one of the Ferraris have to be on this top 3. They had a great weekend, so one of them have to be here. It would have been Sainz for me, but the track limits, because of the penalties that he received, I want to give it to him. So, sorry, I want to give it to Leclerc because, yeah, you know what I mean. Anyways, go for it, BT. Let me know what you think.
Okay, so obviously I'm gonna start the Stroll. For me, surprising pick, I know. Hey, had a good weekend. I have to give it to the man. And I'm wearing a green shirt, so But anyway,
It looks black to
yes,
me,
it's a
mate. But
green
anyways,
shirt.
it's fine.
Oh, it's green. Anyway, Stroll had a good weekend. Had a good qualifying session, had a good sprint race, had a good race. And he managed to beat his teammate, which we all know who his teammate is, in qualifying.
Yeah.
Is it
Fair
for
enough.
the first time, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's the first
it
time?
was.
I don't know. Okay, it is. Cool. And during the race, they were basically Aston Martin, the Stroll side of the garage, they didn't quite have a strategy. I don't know what they were doing. They were trying different strategies, and he kept on moving forward. Then after the pits, he'll find himself at the back again. He moved himself forward again. Then after the pits, it's like they were trying to find the strategy and the right tire.
Yeah,
for them to move forward and to get into the points.
I get
so
you.
he actually managed to do that at the end of the race. Managed to get into the points, which is fantastic for the team. And we know that they are fighting with Merck in terms of the constructions points as well, fighting for third.
Yeah.
So it was quite crucial for him to get those points at the particular race. So I think he had a fantastic weekend. He's not normally consistent. Let's see what happens in Silverstone, but in Austria, he was fantastic. He drove a nice, not actually drove a nice race. He recovered very well. Let me put it that way. He recovered very well, and I was quite impressed with that, to be honest with you. Yeah, that's my.
All right. I got you with that. And your third pick was Sainz.
Fine. So my third pick was Sainz because, look, as a Ferrari fan, I view Leclerc as the number 1 driver. We know Ferrari doesn't say he's the number 1 driver, but they treat him like the number 1 driver. So whatever he was doing on that particular weekend, he was meant to do it. He qualified second, he finished second. Good result. Yeah. That's the result you're supposed to have. Struggled in the sprint. However, okay, whatever. Struggled, we move forward. He qualified second. That's good enough. He came second. He's in the podium. That's good enough. As a number 1 driver, that's your job. Sainz is viewed as a number 2 driver, but Ferrari doesn't actually tell him that. We know how the game works. They put him in his place when he asked to overtake Leclerc. That's when they showed him as a number 2 driver. But still, as a number 2 driver, he had a good weekend. He was right there with Leclerc. He actually had the most seamless weekend than Leclerc because he was consistently on pace. He was fast for the rest of for the whole weekend. Yes, Austria, we know it's a track limit penalty circuit. Why are we surprised about that? He's bound to do it. Everyone's bound to do that. So I don't really factor that within in his weekend, because if he was the only driver, or out of 5 drivers only who was doing that, then I will factor that into the argument. But he was one of most of everyone actually in the race.
Don't worry. We'll get into it. Don't you worry. We're gonna get into it.
Everyone except for Max. Max has won in the race. I don't know, but it's track limits. Everyone was doing
Yeah.
it. So that's why I
Okay.
say for him, third is quite fine and over the
Yeah.
club, because I don't think he reaches the expectations that Clerk gets from Ferrari.
Yeah.
That's my argument.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna do a give and take here. I'm gonna do a give and take. So what I'm gonna say is based on your reasoning for Stroll, and I think we'll chat about it soon as well, in the actual race review. But I'm gonna agree with what you said, there, and I will agree with putting Stroll second. The whole Sainz Leclerc thing, I'm gonna have to say, like, okay, I'm gonna need you to maybe rethink this a bit. And during the race or after the race, I said to you, Sainz is better than Leclerc. I literally said that to you. Your response to me was, okay, Graham, with a thumbs up. A very sarcastic, okay, Graham. I could hear your tone in the message. That's how sarcastic that message was. The fact is, Sainz was better. You're right, he was better. But Leclerc did not get track limits. Leclerc did not get any penalties. Leclerc, if you think about it, the driver we say keeps overdriving the car, the driver that we keep saying makes too many mistakes, and if he wants to win a world champion, he needs to sort himself out, made no mistakes. He drove a beautiful race. He was on the pace, and everything worked well for him, and he just kept it there. He didn't make any mistakes. He did nothing. He did nothing wrong at all. He just kept it going, and he kept going forward. And his consistency during the main race, not the whole weekend, but his consistency during the main race, to me, is what made me put him top three. Because at the end of the day, Sainz, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I really loved watching Sainz and Perez. I thought it was amazing. I got to be honest. I don't think he did anything overly illegal, but I certainly think he was moving a lot. But so was Perez. I've got to put that out there. So was Perez. But again, you're not supposed to be moving under braking. It's not really allowed, So at the end of the day, Sainz was in a position where he was doing things that aren't really the correct way to do things. And he wasn't getting penalized for it. So he was actually getting away with murder, essentially. He wasn't sort of outpacing Perez on pure pace. He was getting lucky because he was doing things he shouldn't have to keep Perez behind. Leclerc he just had the pace. He was going. And it's funny because Sainz had the pace in the first two stints. He was faster than Leclerc. He made Perez look like he was going backwards at one stage when he passed Perez on the back straight, if I'm not mistaken, which I thought was an extremely impressive overtake, because he literally made that rocket ship look like it was a toy rocket ship, So I agree with Stroll. I feel like I get what you're saying about the track limits thing. It's going to happen, but Leclerc didn't do it though. You know what I mean? They've got the same car. Like, it's understandable when you say, like, Max didn't do it and Perez did it, and they're in a good car, But Perez is just not on Max's level. In my opinion, Sainz is really not that far behind Leclerc, if and some points better than Leclerc. So to me, I just think that Sainz let things get the better of him. He got a little bit hot-headed, I think, as well. And also Perez was intimidating him. So I don't know. I don't know if you heard that, but Perez was intimidating him. So I mean, I don't know what the stewards were supposed to do, because he kept on asking the stewards to check at it because he was intimidating him. I'm not entirely sure what the stewards were supposed to do. Give him a penalty for intimidating other drivers. I mean, that's I mean, it's like Lando Norris getting a penalty for being an unsportsman-like behavior. I mean, it's the same thing. You're not allowed to intimidate other drivers. So in that case, you get a penalty. It's like, it's a little bit ridiculous. But we're gonna get onto the
yeah,
yeah. But we are gonna get onto other drivers and crying voice messages over the radio. But anyways, point is Norris
Me,
and Stroll, I agree with. I'm going to ask you to rethink the science thing for third. I'm sticking with Leclerc for now. But maybe you can convince me more if you really have to.
nah, not really, because maybe because I just look at Leclerc that he has to do that. When Ferrari does a strategy, it usually favors Leclerc first. That's
Yeah.
just how I look at it. So for Sainz to have a weekend like a race like that, that's fantastic, to be honest with you. But hey, if you base it on a performance of how clean his performance was, he didn't do errors and stuff like that. Okay, cool. But he's supposed to do that. The team is his. It's just they're not it's just for example, I remember my dad bought a car, right? And he said that car was a family car. But I was driving the car most of the time. So technically, it was my car, but my parents wouldn't say it's my car. That's what's happening to Leclerc.
So you are Leclerc, basically.
It's your team, your number one driver, but we're not going to keep our actions that you're number one driver. What did Ferrari say when Sainz went to the box? What did Ferrari say when Sainz went to the box? Thank you.
Jog on.
If that was Sainz, if that was Sainz and the club was behind, what do you think the Ferrari would do?
Yeah, of course. No, 100%. I agree. And I do agree with you. Like Leclerc should be doing that, right? But my situation is driver versus driver. He isn't clear of Sainz as the number one driver. The team makes him the number one driver, but he's not clear of Sainz as the number one driver. Sainz lets it happen.
How did you come to that conclusion?
No, let me
how did you come to that conclusion?
Let me ask you this question. And I know the caliber of driver is different, but let me ask you this question. If Max was in Sainz's seat.
Oh, not this question again.
No, just listen. Listen. No, it has nothing. No, just listen. If Max was in Sainz's seat, do you think Max was going to listen to Ferrari? No, he wasn't. He was going to pass Leclerc regardless. Sainz could have passed Leclerc if he really wanted to, but he chose to listen to the team. All I'm saying, all I'm trying to say is, driver versus driver, Leclerc was better on the day because he didn't make the mistakes. Sainz was better.
I'm talking about now, like, no, listen.
Sainz was better. He just made too many mistakes.
Leave the race. I'm talking now about how do you come to a conclusion where you think that Sainz is better than Leclerc?
Proof is in the pudding, bro. Look at these points. Leclerc has been, between the two drivers, Sainz has been the one that is consistently there. He's consistently there. He's scoring his points consistently. He's not making mistakes. He's there. Leclerc is pushing that car way too far. He doesn't understand where the limit of the car is because he pushes that car way too far, too much. He causes way too many mistakes and accidents, and he loses control of the car too quickly. The proof's in the pudding, bro. Sainz is ahead of him in the championship.
So that makes Sainz better than Leclerc.
Right now, yes. Because at the end of the day, right now, it does.
No, let's move on. Like this, like you don't pay attention to the stats. It's like what you see is like, okay, he's better.
No.
If
what? Okay, tell me what's okay. What stats? What stats then? Tell me what stats.
Wait. Wait, if I'm not again, I have to go back to the stats again. Leclerc has more race wins than him. Leclerc has more what do you call it? Pole positions than him. Like, do we have to drag it that far?
Okay, but let's think about this for a second.
I thought stats matter. I thought stats matter in the sport. I don't know.
But
Maybe it
yeah,
doesn't.
but let's just think about this for a second, right? It's no secret that Sainz had a struggling year last year, right? It's no secret that he struggled last year.
Okay, the same season that Sainz had this season then. What doesn't make a difference? Why can't Leclerc have the season that Sainz had last year have it this season then? Because that's unfair. That's unfair. All of a sudden now Sainz is doing better. Oh, Sainz is better than Leclerc. Mind you, Leclerc's first win was with the car that was not supposed to be against the dominant Mercedes. And he managed to win a race in Monza.
Mm.
I don't think Sainz would do that, be able to do that at that point for Ferrari. I don't think so. I do not think so. Yes, if Ferrari has a dominant car, absolutely, he's good enough. But for him to do that when Lewis Hamilton and I think Bottas was his teammate or Rosberg, I don't know, when Lewis Hamilton was dominant and you still win a race at Monza, come on, dude. Come on,
Okay.
let's rethink that.
Okay,
let's rethink that.
Okay, cool. So listen, let's just get away from, because we're not actually talking about the race now. We're talking about general shit. We need to get back to the race here. So in Austria, we've got Norris, Stroll, and number 3 is either Leclerc or Sainz. So what are we going to do here? My honest opinion, I understand what you're saying. So Leclerc should be doing what he did. But at the same time, Sainz shouldn't be making the mistakes that he made, regardless of whatever track it's on. Sainz, to me, was the quicker driver on the day. I agree with that. 100% agree with that. Okay? But the quickest driver on the day doesn't mean he's the best driver if he's making mistakes. Because at the end of the day, those penalties could have amounted to accidents, could have amounted because, let's be honest, in this game, an inch off the road and you're in the gravel. 2 inches or an inch off the road, you got track limits. 2 inches, you're in the gravel. You know, at the end of the day, that could have been points taken away from Ferrari completely. And considering he lost points for Ferrari because he's ended up in a lower position than what he should have ended up. But we'll get into that. So to me, he cost the team. He cost the team. And regardless of the fact that it's track limit city, Leclerc didn't cost the team. He cost the team. So in this race, to be honest, that's why I don't agree with him being the 3rd best driver. It's just, it can't be. You can't cost the team points and still be the 3rd best driver on the grid for the whole race. That doesn't make sense to me. I gotta be honest. When we're talking about who's the better driver, you've made some valid points. I'm hearing you. Trust me, I'm hearing you. I'm thinking about it. I am hearing you. But when it comes to this race now, you can't tell me that a guy that's cost the team points is the 3rd best driver of the day. That doesn't add up.
Finally.
Huh?
Yeah, let's go with Leclerc. I mean, that point is quite valid. It actually makes sense to me, to be honest with you. Because Ferrari is chasing points at the moment because
they're in that fight.
The first three races or 4 races were not good at all. So they are playing catch up at the moment, and they're doing quite a good job with that.
Yeah. They do. They are. I mean, by the way, maybe this doesn't come as a surprise to you, but this is the first time that Stroll has gotten points on our little game here. So that's quite interesting. Anyways. Okay, cool. Let's get into the actual race review. I think that's why we're here, and this is going to be good fun. I think we might have spent a little bit too much time on that top 3 segment. But you know what? If you guys wanted a good old argument, you got one. I don't think we've ever actually had a debate like that really on top 3. We've always seemed to come to a quicker agreement, but it's all good. It's all good fun and it's all good content. So let's get into race review. First of all, before we start the race review, we do our 1-sentence race caption. I'm going to start with mine before you go on. Mine is very slapdash, stupid humor type of thing. But basically, Oprah Winfrey is handing out track limit prizes to all the drivers. That's pretty much my 1-sentence race review, because that's kind of what it felt like. So, yes.
Grant, sorry, let me just charge my laptop quickly. Give me a second.
Okay. Right. So, let me just elaborate on that quickly. Yeah. So let me just elaborate on that quickly. Okay. So, pretty simple. We all know the Oprah Winfrey show. We all know you getting a car and you getting a car. Well, in this situation, you getting a track limit penalty and you getting a track limit penalty. She was handing them out like trophies. And it was absolutely ridiculous. Now, I'm pretty certain most of us predicted that this was going to happen. I'm pretty certain that I did, because before the race weekend happened, I wrote in our little F1 group, get ready to get frustrated, because it is extremely frustrating. But we'll get onto that. BT, give me your race caption.
Yeah, quite predictable, your race caption. I mean, you did send it to me during the weekend, like you
exactly. That's why it's predictable, because you saw it already, but they haven't seen it. Anyways, go on.
Okay, so mine was the disappearing magic tricks of Mercedes. That's mine.
Hey, you are what? Shots fired, brother. Listen.
I know.
Listen. We've been doing 1-sentence race caption the entire season. That is the best race caption we've had entire season. I love that. Well done. I absolutely love it. And can I tell you what's in my notes here? Can I tell you what's in my notes here? My notes next to Mercedes say, my notes next to Mercedes say, we're absolutely nowhere.
So let me say it again. The disappearing magic tricks from Mercedes.
There we go.
They were nowhere to be found. They had an absolutely dismal weekend. It was, from a Ferrari fan point of view, beautiful to watch. I enjoyed it. From a F1 fan point of view, I was a bit worried. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, we were talking that they are looking quite fast. They're looking quite good. Lewis Hamilton got his groove on. He went to the fashion show. It was all over Paris. It was having good fun with celebrities. Then Austria came, and they were nowhere to be found. Oh, I didn't forget about you, Russell. I saw you were having some sort of picnic with your girlfriend. Nice and relaxing. I don't think you guys made it to Austria. I don't know who was driving those 2 cars. So yeah, they look.
Actually, I've got to stop you there. I've got to stop you there.
Yeah,
I've got to stop you there. I know who was driving the one. I know who was driving one of them. It was my 5-year-old son, because he was whining like an absolute baby. He was whining like an absolute baby. So why don't we start with Mercedes? Okay. Seeing as we started the race review, why don't we just start with Mercedes? Now, I don't want to bask in glory too much, because I don't want to upset the Mercedes fans for 2 reasons. One, I really want Mercedes to do well in the sport. I want all teams to do well in the sport. And it is upsetting when teams that are pretty good usually just fall away for no reason at all. And the other reason is also because I actually have a lot of respect for guys like Toto and Lewis Hamilton. Not so much George Russell, but for guys like Lewis Hamilton and Toto, I like them. I have a lot of respect for them. But every single day when I've got to tell my 5-year-old son that He needs to stop whining now. He can talk. He knows how to talk. It kind of reminds me of Lewis Hamilton at the Austria GP 2023, because every time I heard him on the radio, he was one. And you know what, Mercedes fans, I love you guys. I really do. I really do. But just to prove my point, and you guys cannot deny this, so please don't have a go at me. Just understand and take the L and just banter with me here. But just to prove my point, he was whining so much that Toto Wolff basically told him to just shut up and drive. I don't know. To me, Mercedes were just anonymous. They were absolutely nowhere. But the only time we did see them, one of them was crying like a baby, and their team boss was telling them to shut up and drive. So that's pretty much all the notes I have for Mercedes. I have nothing else about them in my notes because there was nothing to talk about. I don't know if you would like to add anything, BT.
I mean, look, you said it all, eh? They were nowhere to be found. Lewis Hamilton forgot that he's a 7-time world champion, a veteran in the sport, and was whining all the time. I enjoyed it. I was laughing throughout the whole race. It was just crazy. I was purely entertained. Thank you, Lewis. I was purely entertained, and I love the fact that the Lewis engineer just gave up and actually told Toto, "Look, talk to this guy, bro. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I think he might listen to you." So yeah, that was fantastic. I enjoyed that. Performance-wise from the team, especially Lewis. For that particular weekend and the performance-wise,
yeah,
they done an okay job. They done an okay job. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't fantastic. It was just in the middle. It was like a blur weekend. It's one of those weekends where you got there, you drove, and on to the next weekend. It's a weekend to forget for Mercedes, straight up. For Russell, he did have that small intelligence time during the weekend. I don't know if it was in the sprint race where he opted in for the slicks when the track was trying to dry up from the rain. That was quite a good strategy for him, and he was able to be within the points in the sprint race. I think that's the only highlight he has for the rest of the weekend. The race, I couldn't see him. I don't know where he was. He probably should have not went to Austria, stayed in England with his girlfriend and had that picnic. But yeah, that was ladies.
Yeah,
in a nutshell.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the picnic. It must have been quite nice. Just for some extra content, BT has been watching the Grand Tour because he hasn't kept up to date. And basically, he watched it before the race. And when he finished watching it, he watched the race and he didn't realize that he was watching something completely different because the humor was also there. The whining was there.
Yeah.
The fun was there. So it basically, Hamilton made it look like Grand Tour. So BT just was watching, he was just watching Grand Tour all weekend long.
I love it.
Anyways, cool. Let's move on to the next team. The next team I'd like to talk about is Red Bull. This shouldn't be too long again because, again, it's Red Bull. Again, we don't have much to talk about. I have a few things to ask. I said it earlier. Perez didn't impress me, but he shouldn't. He shouldn't be impressing me. He should just be there, if that makes sense. Like, he should be there. But the fact that he hasn't been, it was quite impressive that he made it onto the podium. And if I'm quite honest with you, whatever magic Merck had, they gave it to him because he just appeared in the top 3. Like, I wasn't really sure what was going on. He just happened to appear there at some point in the race, and I was just like, oh, okay. How did that happen? He did have a lot of fights. He actually was very busy in that race. He had a lot of overtaking to do. I think he overtook George like 3 times very easily. Overtook I think Norris and Alonso as well. I can't remember if that was during the pits, but I think he might have overtaken them. He obviously overtook Sainz as well. So very impressed with Perez, but again, I am, but I shouldn't be, but I am. So well done to Perez. To me, you had a good race. And then there was a time where I thought that Red Bull bottled the strategy when they didn't pit during the safety car. But then I remember they're in a Red Bull, and it doesn't really matter what they do. They're probably still going to win by 20 seconds, which they did. So, anyways, that's pretty much sums up Red Bull for the year. I have one question. I've seen this question come about in other podcasts and just people on TikTok asking questions. Was Max's fastest lap a very risky thing to do? From my understanding, actually, I'll ask you the question and then I'll give you mine. So yeah, it was fast. Was Max's fastest lap very risky?
No.
No. Okay. No,
No.
just no, nothing. Just
Look,
no.
Leclerc tried to keep up with him, and Leclerc's pace was good throughout the race.
Yeah.
But I feel like Leclerc also had to maybe do his own pit stop
Yeah.
to actually just move the needle for Red Bull.
Yeah.
And he did it. That car is a
So
rocket ship.
yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
So I don't see it as a risk. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just showing how confident they are with that car. That
Yeah.
let's do a pit stop now and let's do a fast lap quickly.
Yeah. See, even Crofty was saying, like, it's risky because it's not just the pace, it's also the mechanical issues that could happen during the pit. But we're talking about Red Bull. These guys are like a well-oiled machine, right? But for me as well, the reason why, okay, so this is why I don't think it is very risky, right? First of all, Max and Red Bull are like 100 plus points clear of everybody. If something had to go wrong, he probably wasn't going to end up last. He was probably still going to end up in the points at some point. You know what I mean? It's not like he would have lost that many positions. He would have probably lost to Leclerc. He would have probably finished second or third had something gone wrong in the pits. Okay. And then the other thing is that this was apparently a tribute for Dietrich that passed away. And it's obviously his home race. It's their home race, is Red Bull. So he wanted to do it for him. The only thing I will say is that, look, Red Bull already had the fastest lap at that point. So it probably wasn't necessary for him to do it, but it's Max. Let's be honest. It's Max. He wants every point he could possibly get and dominate as much as he can possibly dominate. So,
I mean,
at the
if you
end,
put it that way, it's a nice gesture, though, for the team
it
owner.
is.
I mean, if you put it that
Yeah.
way, yeah.
Personally, I just don't think it's that risky because if something went wrong, he was probably only going to lose a place to Leclerc. So it's not like he was going to lose much points. The guy's 100 points clear in the championship. At least the team is, I think. So, really, let's be honest. Sorry. So, anyways, that's all I have on Red Bull. There's really not much for me to discuss other than that. So I don't know if you've got anything to add for Red Bull.
Look, I think you covered everything in terms of Red Bull. I mean, in terms of Max, I think starting to run out of things to say about him. I mean, the only talking point we're gonna have about Max now, if he consistently DNFs for 2 races in a row, which is highly unlikely to happen. So I have nothing to say to Max. I mean, that circuit is made for him.
Yeah.
He has 5 wins there. Something to say about it. Like Red Bull dominates the race not every year, but when they have a good car, they do. I mean, Mercedes have
they always do well in Austria.
Yeah, Mercedes has a number of wins. We know Ferrari won there last year.
Yeah.
Leclerc, fantastic race for him last year. But yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of Perez recovered well. He had an up and down race weekend. We saw what happened in the sprint race, which all thought maybe they were gonna butt heads, but knowing Red Bull, they know how to sort themselves out, and they do have respect for each other. So the media tried to make it as big as
they
it
did.
wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
They quickly squashed that the beef or whatever argument or misunderstanding they had on track immediately, and it was quite good. It shows the type of team Red Bull is. So, I mean, Yeah,
I
Perez
I
had
I,
a
I agree, man. I
Perez
was
had a good weekend. Yeah.
whenever I heard the Sky guys like talking about them, like in that sort of like trying to create something, and I'm
Mm,
like guys, are you dumb? Like just at the end of the race, they got out their cars and they were chatting there, like they were explaining stuff to each other, and they were chatting just fine. Like you can clearly see they were fine. You know what I mean? Like it was,
yeah, they were like
um,
trying to create uh,
like
they
massive drama.
still
Like
having
it
a
was just,
misunderstanding.
and when they interviewed Perez, Perez said it like it was just a misunderstanding. He's like, but he said it so openly as well, where he's like, no, he thinks because they asked him about Max retaliate, like what Max did to him in sector 2, and he's like, no, he just thinks that Max got a bit angry, so that he was just retaliating to what I did to him in the beginning. Like he was so open, like I made the mistake and he retaliated, but he seemed okay with that. It was like that's just how it was. I made a mistake. I didn't see him, and he retaliated, and he was fine with it. So it's like, and they dig, hey, they just dig, like they ask, they probe with these questions, and they
They
ask the drivers,
journalists, man.
bro, it was
They
ridiculous, man. But I
journalists.
was just like, you guys
It's
are
their job.
really
It's
trying so hard.
it's their job to create. It's their job to create stories. Like you could
Yeah,
see
that's
while
fair.
Perez and Max were talking, they're trying to create something. I'm like,
Yeah.
geez, they just talking.
Speaking
It's just
speaking of something to create here, when they were asking Lewis Hamilton some questions. Sorry, I know we're on Red Bull. We've already passed Mercedes, but I've got to ask you the question. Lewis Hamilton said this weekend that he thinks that they should pause development until a certain time of the year. What do you think of that statement?
Lewis Hamilton. Stop. Stop. Please stop. You dominated for 8 years. 8
Yeah,
freaking years. You were winning championships all over the place, and no one
yeah.
was saying anything. Okay, they were saying
No,
things.
I was gonna say they definitely were.
Yeah, they were saying things,
Red Bull
but
almost
you were
threatened to
winning.
leave the sport.
So
It's like,
you see, so they were saying things, and you didn't care.
yeah,
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth and focus on your season,
yeah.
please. That's what I'm gonna
Yeah, so
say.
that's my thing, is like teams like Red Bull and stuff were saying things, they were doing things, but at
Yes.
the time, Mercedes were like, sort
Yeah.
yourselves out. Whereas like now,
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're losing. Now he wants to cry.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of a sour taste. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the idea isn't that bad, but coming from him, it's just a bit sour. You know what I mean? In any case, I think if you had to pause development, it would probably benefit Red Bull anyways, because
Yes.
they already, yeah,
Yes.
like it would make sense if Mercedes says now, why don't we forget
Yeah.
about this year and start on next year's car now? More so than Red Bull starting now. Like it would benefit. So
Yes.
it actually would benefit Red Bull more if you did pause until a certain time, because they're already ahead. Anyways, I just thought I'd ask you the question. Anyways, let's move on. The next team we want to talk about is Ferrari. Now, you are a Ferrari man, and Ferrari had a great week. I was extremely impressed again with them. Again, probably shouldn't be, but it's 2 races in a row now that they've delivered, and I've got an inkling, and there has been upgrades involved here, in the
Yes.
last 2 races, and I've got this feeling that Ferrari are for once going to do the opposite to what they always do, where they start well and end off terrible. They didn't start great, but I've got a feeling that they're going to get better throughout the year. And when I mean better, I mean out-develop other teams, which is something they've never really done that much of. I just have the feeling. I've got no facts to back this up. I've just got that feeling, and one of the things that I'm seeing is that they didn't just look quick. They looked like they were set, number 2 car set. Like there was nobody that looked better. I mean,
Yeah.
Sainz looked faster than Perez at some points of that race up until the last stint. And so yeah, for me, it just seemed like maybe it's the track specific. I don't know. It possibly is track specific, but they definitely looked like the clear number 2 car here. similar to like last year, for example. Which was good to see. So I hope they can keep that up. I really do hope they can keep that up. I want to say we have obviously discussed a lot of this already in our top 3 argument. Sainz definitely was the better and faster driver, but he cost the team points. He made mistakes, and that's just a pity for him. But BT, as a Ferrari fan, I've got to ask you this question: what do you think about what are your thoughts on this whole team order thing? Do you think the team should have let Sainz go? Don't you think they should have let him go? Well, what are your thoughts on the fact that they didn't let him go when he clearly was quicker than Leclerc at the time?
Look, I have a two-part answer to this.
Okay.
They didn't let him go because they were trying their hard to make Leclerc happy.
Yeah.
Leclerc has not been a happy chappy for the past. Leave Canada. Okay, they had a sketchy moment in Canada during the qualifying. That was quite a sketchy. They got over it, but I mean, this year I haven't seen Leclerc smile the way he was smiling at the end of this race.
Yeah.
So for them, they were playing the retention card where they were showing Leclerc, look, you're still, as I say, you're still our number one. We want to take care of you. We have this racing driver. We value you, and whatever you don't like, we will stick to it.
100%.
The other answer is that they should have let Sainz go past. Only in one term that they tell Sainz, if you don't catch Verstappen or be within 5 seconds, you stop that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. That was my thinking. I agree with that. That was my thinking. My thinking was they should at least swap them and give Sainz the chance. He clearly was quicker. If he had any opportunity to catch Verstappen, and Bottas and Hamilton did that a few times, where if Hamilton couldn't get, they would swap again. I think that's the right way to go about it, because you're still looking after your Leclerc, but you're also saying, look, Leclerc, he is quicker. We can't deny that he's quicker. Let him go. If he can't catch Verstappen, you guys swap again. You were the better qualifying car. Speaking of better qualifying car, okay, no, we'll get into that. We'll get into that, because that sort of ties into my moment of the week here. So we'll get into that. I'm not going to talk about that now. Anyways, Leclerc showed some good BMT, big match temperament. If you guys didn't know what BMT means, he did not make many mistakes this weekend. He was very on point, very well done for him. I was quite happy with Leclerc this weekend. I got to say, there were still some creeping up in the Ferrari pits. There were still a few minor mistakes that did scare me a bit with them. Like, they definitely still have a lot of work to do to have the perfect weekend and to stop letting some of these things creep in. But all in all, well done Ferrari, well done Leclerc, and I want to say well done Sainz, but you did kind of cost the team points now, although you kind of were the better driver of the day. It's a weird thing to say that, but I'm sure we all understand why. But in all, though, in terms of pace, in terms of comfortability with the car, I'm very happy with Sainz, because I like Sainz. I think he's a good driver, and it's a bit. It's taken him a little bit too long to get used to this car, but I'm glad that he's starting to look like he's got the hang of it. It's a couple of races now that he's been looking pretty good with that car, or as good as the car can make him look. So you're the Ferrari man, so you can take it from here and give me anything else you'd like to add if you feel like adding anything.
Yeah, no, it was a good weekend. As I say, we're not supposed to say so, but we know where Ferrari was at the beginning of the year. So,
sorry, I just have to stop you quickly.
Again. Yeah.
A water drop just dropped on my computer. That's a bit odd. Okay, carry on. You can carry on talking. Sorry.
No, I was saying that, look, we expect this from Ferrari. As I said before, we should not be saying good weekend. They are the most successful team in the sport. You know, they have history
Yeah.
in the sport. They have the most things, all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
for me to actually watch 2 weekends in a row where everything is looking good, performance is quite on par, performance is consistent. That's what matters to me. And this particular weekend, Ferrari was the second team behind Red Bull.
100%.
And
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put a hot take. They were quite close to the Red Bull than the other teams were.
Yeah.
Let's
100%.
just put it.
100%.
They
Throughout
were
the
much
entire year
closer.
as well.
Yeah, which is it's a good result.
Yeah.
So going towards the middle of the season now and the break that everyone's gonna get, we're gonna see what happens after the break.
Yeah.
After the break, the whole season could change. We don't know, and that's the most exciting part about it. Is that
Well,
they must go
yeah.
Red Bull, and they getting within the points, and they're also chasing Mercedes and Aston Martin, the constructions
Yeah.
now, and the guys are slightly moving on the standings as
Yeah.
well, quite
Well, I will.
seamlessly. So I'm quite happy about
Yeah.
everything.
I will say this. They definitely looked racier against the Red Bulls. But by the end of the race, the Red Bulls were still very clear. I mean, 22 seconds is a massive amount. Because that's what that is how far he was ahead before he made that last pit stop. So and he cleared the fastest lap so easily on those softs. Like it didn't even look like he was trying, to be really honest with you. Anyways, let's move on to Aston Martin. Aston Martin, I don't know. Their weekend was a little bit. They didn't have a bad weekend, but they weren't Aston Martin either. So it's kind of like they were. I don't know if it's because of Ferrari doing so well or what it was, but they were kind of there, but they weren't there. Norris was in the mix there. By the way, Mercedes was the third fastest Mercedes on the grid. Did you know that? Anyways, so did you catch that? I'm sorry. Like, did you hear what I said now? So I just remembered that now because it was Norris and then Alonso and then the Mercedes. Anyways, the fact that look, Norris, that's Norris's hunting ground, Austria. I don't see him doing that again, you know, in Silverstone or whatever. But still, he still got ahead of a guy like Alonso, for example, you know. So it's a weird one for me here. I think Stroll did extremely well. I think I was very confused with what happened in that race because every time I saw him, he had lost places, and then I'm like, how? Like what? And then I'd realize that he had pitted again, and then I'm like, why is he pitting again? I don't understand. Like, didn't he just have hards on? Like, I don't know what's going on. I was very confused. But every time he got pitted, he made those places up again. So like I was very confused, but it was working and it got him back into the points. And so you've got to give it to him. He had a great race. I personally think he was sticking with Alonso for quite some time until the first pit stop happened. I'm not really sure what went wrong. But he just tumbled down after that. But let's be honest, had it not been for that, he could have been in the top 5. You know, he was sticking there. And on merit, you know, it wouldn't have been a lucky thing. It would have been on merit. In fact, top 3, top 4 penalties because obviously the penalties that would have occurred, signs that was pushed back and so on. Anyways, yeah, I was very impressed with Stroll. But I have said he's an underrated driver, so I'm not that impressed. I know he's got it in him, and I don't mean that in a jokey way. Like I know he's got it in him. I just wish that he would show this type of ability more often, more regularly. I will be honest. There was a time where they were on his onboard and he was resting his arm on the top, and then they asked him after the race about that, and he just said, "I was just resting my arm." But there was some speculation there about are his wrists fully recovered or not? Which, you know, it's one of those things where it's like you don't want to make excuses for him, but it is his wrists, which he needs to use a lot of. So like, has his inconsistencies this year been due to that? or has he just been inconsistent? You know, it's a very difficult thing. We've clearly seen that from time to time he can put in a really good performance. So why is he not doing it more often? It's a very tricky conversation to have here. Also, if his wrists aren't good, is it safe for him to actually be racing every race? You know what I mean? So, you know, it's a bit of a tough one. And before I move on from Aston Martin, or before I let you give your sound Aston Martin, I've got to say that snitches get stitches. And come the next race, they best be careful, because something bad is going to happen to them. I'm just
Don't
joking.
believe what they did, eh?
Yeah. I also can't believe it, but I have to say this, right? I have to say this. I can't believe that they did it, and I can't believe that it worked as well. But I have to say this. This is not the first time that Aston Martin has done this year. And I got to be very honest with you. They mean business. They are showing big team temperaments here. They are showing winning mentality. And the reason why I say that is because if you look in the past, who's the teams that are always protesting? Red Bull and Mercedes, Red Bull and Mercedes, Red Bull and Mercedes, because their philosophy is every little bit of advantage that you can get, you take it. And that is what Aston Martin are doing right now. Not only that, but they've also exposed the FIA. Let's make a clip out of this one. Let's make a clip out of this one. Aston Martin exposes the FIA. 87 deleted laps. We're going to get into the deleted laps. 87 deleted laps that was missed. 87. And I don't know if I'm pulling that number out of a dark place, but I'm sure that's the number I heard. 87. Mate, there's some ridiculous numbers that are, we're going to get into that now. But I'm just saying, Aston Martin exposes FIA. Which begs to ask, you kind of need to ask this question now. If the teams have to pick these things up and FIA aren't picking up, is FIA showing favoritism here? Is FIA showing favoritism? And I'll ask these questions why. One of the reasons is some of the drivers already got penalties. Do FIA then say, you know, he really got a penalty, it's fine, don't give him another one, and show that kind of favoritism? Or do they show favoritism towards other teams? But just to put this out there, Aston Martin protested. None of them got penalties. Stroll or Alonso both didn't get penalties. So it's not like they did anything wrong. In fact, their thing was they never got penalties, but yet there were drivers in front of them that did. So surely they should get those extra points because they didn't do anything wrong. And that's right. I agree with that. But my question is, are some teams being shown favoritism? Because why would FIA not pick up those laps? Why would they just be missed? Anyways, I'll leave it to you. I'm done with Aston Martin. You go for it.
Well, that's what Lewis Hamilton was whining about.
But he also got penalties himself.
Yeah, no, listen. Lewis Hamilton was whining about it. Meanwhile, Aston Martin is working behind the scenes to whine about it behind the scenes. You know? I mean, look, a team like Ferrari always get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
A team like Red Bull always get the benefit of the doubt. A team like Mercedes always get the benefit of the doubt because those three teams are the teams that have the most fan base.
Yeah.
And probably bring in the most revenue to the sport. Let's just face it. So yes, favoritism is there for certain teams, certain drivers. I've answered your question. We'll do that. Aston Martin, look, my race review for Aston Martin, they did what they have to do to maintain their constructions championship.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I've already spoken about Stroll. You guys really heard me about Stroll. He had a fantastic weekend. Fantastic. Alonso does not like that track. Alonso does not do well in that track. So I knew Alonso was not going to be in people's mirrors and all that stuff. No, he doesn't like that track. His highest in that track is fourth, people.
Yeah.
His highest position. So it's not a track that he usually dominates in. So I wasn't waiting for him to pull a rabbit out of a hat or anything like that. He just got points with the team. I'm sure he wasn't bothered that Stroll qualified above him. I don't think he cared. He just was like, let's do this and on to the next weekend. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. I just had an interesting thing pop up on my screen here. So, I don't know if Chrome does it, but my Safari, it pops up. So like, for example, if I'm following a certain website, then whenever there's a notification from that website, there's a pop-up. And I got a pop-up here from GP fans, which I've got to be honest, they're not always the most accurate. They're very clickbaity. But when you read their content, some of it, they do back it up with quotes and whatever. I'm not sure how to read into this, but I just got a pop-up saying, Alonso pleads with Aston Martin not to treat F1 races like football matches. And one of the head paragraphs, it says here, the F1 veteran has claimed six top three finishes in 2023 and has now called on Aston Martin to not overreact when results at circuits don't suit them the way they want it. So does that mean that Alonso didn't want them to do the whole snitching thing? I don't know. Personally,
I think so.
Yeah, possibly. Personally, I get it. I do get it. But I think they did the right thing, in my honest opinion. If that is what Alonso is saying, I get it from his point of view, but it's weird that he would say that because he's the type of driver that usually wants to gain every advantage he can. So it is very odd coming from him. But in my opinion, I think they did the right thing. I think they're showing that they mean business here. Because if they're gonna
they testing where they lie with the FIA. So now they more or less know that FIA is willing to listen to them, which is quite good. So
100%. Cool. So that's the top big four done. So let's just get into the rest of the field. I personally don't have a lot to say. I've just got a few things. Zach Brown wasn't at the race, obviously, again. Come on, dude. Like, it's not even come on. It's not even a coincidence anymore, right? Like, every time the guy's not there, they pull off a good result. Like, it's not like at the beginning, you're like, oh, it's just a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. Like, he just isn't there. And every time he isn't there, they score good points. So, like, just stay away then. Like, surely you can clearly, like, has he not picked up on the pattern? You're like, for somebody in his position, surely he should know by now, like, oh, there's a pattern here. Maybe I shouldn't be at the races. So I don't know. It's just, that's all I have to say about.
He wants to get away from the wife now and then, bro.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyways, Lando, well played to Lando. He absolutely bossed that whole weekend. Not the sprint. He did boss it in terms of qualifying, but then he had the anti-stall situation, which I do feel bad for him about. But well done. He finished fourth. He started fourth. You can't really ask for much more than that. Well done, Lando. Then shocking breaking news. Magnussen and De Vries have announced that they're going to get married soon. Because in every single race, they just seem to not be able to leave each other alone. It's a bit of a tough one for me. I don't know. Yeah, they literally can't leave each other alone. Ocon finished 20th in F2, if you guys didn't know. He got 30 seconds worth of penalties, which dropped him back into the F2 race. And then the last point that I would like to make is unlucky for Hulk, because he was doing extremely well this weekend, and in the main race he was doing extremely well, and then things just didn't go his way. Not much more to say about anybody else. We'll get into the rest of it after this. In terms of track limits and penalties, I'm going to go through them. But yeah, I don't have much more. Those are the only things I can cover about the rest of the field. I will say Alpine were also, in fact, even more so worse than Mercedes. Alpine were almost nowhere. I'm not really sure what Gasly did well. Gasly did well. But yeah, Alpine, you definitely would expect them to be higher up than where they were. So that's a bit concerning for them. But hey, maybe they should try a Deadpool livery at some point, and that would help, considering Ryan Reynolds is now involved, and Deadpool never loses. So let's be honest. Anyways, I don't know if you have anything to add on to any of that.
Alex Albon, hard luck, but you had a good weekend. Williams is looking good this week. Sorry, Williams is looking good this year. Proud of that team. From where they were last year to now, it's looking fantastic. 100%. Albon has his mojo back. He's looking fast.
Yeah.
He's looking quite good. Do not make that big team move so soon yet. Calm down. Stay in the team for a couple of years. Work yourself up. Yeah, 100%. Williams is looking. I'm quite impressed with Williams at this point.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm glad you said that, because I actually forgot about Albon, and it's a couple races in a row now that he's really sort of like stepped up, and obviously the car has upgrades. His car has upgrades, not Sargent's car. I need to find out when Sargent is good. I don't know if it's Silverstone or if it was now in Austria, but Sargent should be getting the upgrades soon as well. But only Albon got the upgrades. But he's doing so well with them. He's making the car work for them, for him. And yeah, hard luck for him. I really feel bad for him, because he was doing really well. But there has been talk about, he was actually saying that Christian Horner messages him quite often to say like, good races and stuff. And he was saying like, he's not thinking about that now. He wants to just do well for Williams, which is a good thing. I don't personally think that Red Bull need him anytime soon. So I don't think that Christian is going to try and, but I think, they probably keep contact because they might need him at some point. He is still a really good driver at the end of the day. So it is quite interesting. But I do agree with you. He needs to stay there now, and he needs to just sort of keep it there and build the team around him, because they've got the team now to really push that car forward, a team full of winning mentality personnel, and now all they need is to put a bit of infrastructure together to push the team even further. But he must build that team around him and see what he can do with it. But yeah, anything else you'd like to add to the rest of the field?
Nope.
Cool. Nope.
Yeah, I'm all good.
Okay, cool.
Let's go.
All right. Now, I should have maybe should have started with this. Maybe I'll just in the edit just put this at the beginning of the race review. But I'm going to get into all the track limits for this weekend. And there's a reason why I want to do that. The reason why I want to go through this is because it's really getting ridiculous. Like, either they need to put a gravel trap there closer to the track, or they need to make the track wider. But it's, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure you know by now, but for those of you that don't know, the race results that you saw at the end of the race is not the race results that are currently what, I don't even know how do you even say that? The race results now are not, the race results now are not the race results you saw when the race finished. And I'm going to go through the new race results now so that you guys can understand who is actually where in what position. And if I'm really honest with you, it's so bad for the sport for a race to be determined 5 hours after the race finished. It's so bad for the sport. And also on top of it, for drivers to be getting penalties 5 hours after the race. I mean, okay, fine. Someone like Ocon that's getting 30-second penalties. I mean, dude, like, whatever. Like, that's your own fault. Like that's your own stupidity. You got
So
there's
when
nothing.
you told me that, I was like, what?
Yeah, dude, that's your own stupidity. But like if you look at Hamilton, for example, Hamilton got a 5-second penalty. That put him behind that put him very close to George, behind George. 1 hour 20. He was not he wasn't even a second he wasn't even a second behind George. Had he got that in the race, he could have made a way to try and pass George. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But now, because he got it 5 hours later, there's nothing you can do about it. You know,
yeah,
races, sometimes these things happen where you get penalties and then, you know, yeah, you're supposed to be punished. But as a racer, it's going to happen sometimes, especially at a place like this where Oprah Winfrey is there just handing out track limit penalties. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, in that situation, it's like, okay, cool, I'm probably going to get a penalty. So when I do get one, I need to just try and strategize around that. He finished
yeah.
with the penalty, he finished 8 tenths behind Russell. If he got that penalty in the race, he could have found a way to make those 8 tenths up to get back past him, to get his position back. You know? So to me, that's I don't like the idea of people getting penalties after race. But anyways, let's get into the race results. Okay, so for those of you that haven't seen it yet, I'm gonna read it out. And this is the final race result now. Okay, so this is how it actually finished. With from 1 to 19, with obviously Nico Hulkenberg DNF, so no 20. So from 1 to 19, we have Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, Lando Norris, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz was the first one in the order to drop. So Carlos Sainz ended 4th, did he not? He dropped down to
Yeah.
6 because of his penalty. You then had in 7th George Russell, Lewis 8th, 9th Stroll, Pierre Gasly 10th. Pierre Gasly also lost a place. Lewis Hamilton also lost a place. Lewis Hamilton lost a place to George, and Gasly lost a place to Stroll because of their penalties. And then we had Albon, who also had some penalties, but he didn't lose places. We then had Guan Yu, Sargent, Ocon, Bottas, Piastri, Ocon, 14th. Jeez, like it. Okay. With 30 seconds. Oh, okay. Anyways. Sorry. Ocon, Bottas. That just shows you how bad Bottas is, let's be honest. Wow. Anyways. Ocon had a 30-second penalty and he still couldn't pass. Bottas still couldn't pass. Jeez. Hey, listen, Bottas got a point in the last race, so don't forget that. Anyways, Bottas, Piastri, De Vries, Magnussen, Tsunoda. Okay. De Vries finally beat Tsunoda. But I have heard today that, and again, not too sure about the source. They called the race. They are well known. They have said that it's apparently been reported that De Vries might be swapping with Lawson mid-season, which doesn't surprise me in the Red Bull camp. But at the same time, do you think it's deserved? Or do you think he should get the rest of the season?
And let's do the swap.
I
The thing
agree, man.
is,
I agree.
there's so many talk about him, how good he is, stuff like how much potential he has. So
Yeah.
I mean, he's not showing it at the moment. Honestly, I'm not paying attention to him, but when I look at his results,
he's just nowhere. I agree. I think they should just cut the cord right now and just get Liam Lawson in. If, in my honest opinion, I don't really understand why Liam Lawson isn't there in the first place. And it was said this week that Marco actually admitted this in this last week. Marco Helmut actually admitted that Christian Horner wanted Liam Lawson. He didn't want De Vries. And he actually said, I actually think that Christian was right. I'm going to admit that Christian was actually right on this one. Which, to be fair, to say that in the press about one of your drivers is quite rough. Because imagine how your driver must feel listening to you say that. That's quite hectic.
yeah.
But he
But
said
he knows his
it.
performance. He knows as well
Yeah.
he hasn't been performing well. So
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, after the race, there were 12. After the race, there were 12 further penalties after the race. Okay, and the penalties were as such. Carlos Sainz with a 10-second penalty. Lewis Hamilton, 10-second penalty. Pierre Gasly, 10-second penalty. Alex Albon, 10-second penalty. Are you ready?
yeah.
Okay. Ocon, 5-second penalty. Ocon, 10-second penalty. Ocon, 5-second penalty. Ocon, 10-second penalty. Okay. Then
Ocon is wilding.
yeah, bruv. Guy was wild west at that point there. Jeez, guys was going boss. Anyways, Logan Sargent 10-second penalty, Nick de Vries 10-second penalty, Nick de Vries 5-second penalty, Yuki Tsunoda 5-second penalty. All after the race. Anyways, I think I've just realized who my blooper of the week is. That's not what I put on my page, but it's probably what I should be putting on my page. Anyways, so that is the penalties that occurred after the race, and that is the final race results. So let's move on to the next thing, which is the moment of the week. BT, do you want to take this one first and give me your moment of the weekend?
Over the weekend is where Sainz was saying to it is intimidate.
Your man can't keep a straight face. It was hilarious. I absolutely canned myself when I saw that thing.
I was like, what did he just say? I'm like thinking, did Sainz just forget? What did he say?
Say that again. Did Sainz forgot what?
Or was he fumbling like words or something like that? Because it sounded like something that you wouldn't ever hear in a Formula One race. Like when he said it, I was like, what?
He's intimidating me. You need to look at him. He's intimidating me. It's like something that my one son will say to my other son.
Dude, I canned myself when I heard that. Woo! It was
that was tough.
entertaining. And the Ferrari team, I could hear like they didn't know what to say to him. They're like, dude, like, okay. So
Yeah, no, I
so
don't know.
apparently
That was tough.
intimidating means that it meant like Perez was trying to taunt him,
Yeah,
game to go into a space where they might crash into each other or something like that. But the
yeah.
way you said it, it
It was
was
hilarious. Yeah,
funny. This race was funny, dude. Like this
it
race was
was.
funny.
It was
It's
funny.
comedy. It's comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, man. I must say, I also found it quite a hilarious race. I also found myself laughing for the most ridiculous things. Like obviously Lewis crying was even Lando, bro. Even Lando was crying a lot there. I must say, even Lando was snitching. The whole race, Lando was also snitching on Lewis, snitching the whole race was hilarious, man. So I must agree with you on that one. But yeah, that's a great moment. My moment of the weekend, I've got to be honest with you, is Leclerc's quali lap. So it's not so funny, but it was a toss-up between Leclerc and Norris. But Norris is really good at that track generally. So is Leclerc. But if I'm really honest with you, it didn't look like it was that difficult for Norris. You know what I mean? Like he just did it, which is weird. Because you wouldn't expect that McLaren to look good, really, compared to the Ferrari. But if you looked at Leclerc's lap, he looked like he was on the rail. Like he looked like 1 inch to the left, and that car was going to slide into a wall or something. Like it was,
Yeah.
it was like Max's lap from Monaco, basically. And he was 4,000th off of Max. I think it was 4,000 or something like that, or 400.
About that.
Something like it was 400. It was 400.
Insane, bro.
It was
Insane
crazy.
numbers.
It was crazy. So that was my moment of the weekend, just purely because, again, Ferrari, being so close to Red Bull in that qualifying was Leclerc. That was not Ferrari. That was Leclerc, putting that car on the rail and just getting every bit of advantage he could possibly get out of that car. And when they go balls to the wall like that and they put themselves on the line, then it means a lot to them. So well done to Leclerc. And then we move over to the blooper of the week. Now I'm gonna start with this one. So I'm not gonna say Ocon. Okay. He would have been the blooper of the week in F1, but he finished so far back that he was in the Formula E series this weekend. So Ocon wasn't my blooper of the week, but blooper doesn't always mean the worst. Blooper could always also mean, usually when you watch on the movie, a blooper is like with the funnies, it's like when they made mistakes and they were just funny. Now, in this case, nobody made a mistake, but it was funny. And so my blooper of the week was Aston Martin snitching on absolutely everybody. They were just like, you guys, you know what, guys? Like, okay, we've had Norris complaining and whining. We've had Lewis Hamilton complaining and whine and snitching, and we've had Sainz snitching and complaining on Perez, and all of these oaks have been snitching and complaining. But you know what? We just gonna do one more than all of them, and we're just gonna snitch on all y'all, and we're just gonna make all of you guys just. They just snitched on everybody, like everybody, even Albon, who wasn't even in the race. He wasn't even close to Aston Martin. He's like, we're gonna snitch on you too, Albon. Get you some. Ocon was nowhere. They were like, I'm going to snitch on you too, son. Just remember this in the next race when you're in between our two Aston Martins. We will catch you guys. So my blooper is not because I did anything wrong, but just because it was absolutely hilarious. Aston Martin snitching on everybody. What's yours?
Yeah, mine is that as well, to be honest with you. As that and Ocon situation, I couldn't stop laughing when you told me that. I just couldn't stop laughing. I was like, what was he doing? Was he reading a book while he was driving? Was he texting? What was he doing? Like, but the Aston Martin one is quite a good one.
I wonder if Ocon, like you said, like the pictures you saw of like Russell at the picnic with his girlfriend. Like, I wonder if it wasn't Ocon with Russell's girlfriend on the week. Like, did you check that picture's right? Because let's be honest, something was going on in Ocon's head, and it clearly wasn't racing. Let's be honest.
It was since I heard Lewis Hamilton and Shakira rumors, bro. Anything is possible in the F1. So
yeah, fair enough. All right. Let's wrap this up. We have got top predictions left and then rate the race. So our predictions were as follows. For me, I picked, and I went wild with this one. I said Max was going to DNF, and so I went Alonso, Perez, Lewis. So I do get 1 point at least for Perez because he came third. So I still get 1 point. You went Max, Alonso, Leclerc. So you get 3 points because 2 for Max and 1 for Leclerc because Leclerc came second, not third. So that brings the tally up to a pretty decent lead from yourself, I've got to be honest. But I watched something on a different podcast, and I think we're going to do the same thing here because it seems fair only. If I look at my predictions versus your predictions, I have gone with way more outrageous predictions than you have. So
why are you doing that?
So no, hang on. So what we're gonna do from now on is, if you predict Max to win, and Max wins, you get 1 point. You get 2 points. But if you predict somebody else to win and that person wins, you get double points. You get 4 points. Let's be
Okay.
let's be honest, bro. Like, let's be honest. If I had to predict Alonso to win a race now, and he absolutely actually won it, you'll be like, what? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You have gone. You've also had. I mean, you also in Jeddah, you predicted Alonso to win. So that could have been 4 points for you. You predicted Perez, Baku, Max. I started off with Max, and then I got bored. So then I started experimenting, and that's when it all went to shit for me, because up until that point I was leading. Call me a wild child. Maybe my second name should be Ocon. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Put it
yeah.
on Ocon.
Okay, so I'm not going to give away the points because we'll do something in the mid-season to go through that to see where we are. But it's probably no surprise that you are ahead. But I've still got a couple of races to catch up again. Okay, so predictions for next week, BT. Silverstone. My second or third favorite race. I think it's Austria, Brazil, Silverstone. Okay, what's your predictions for Silverstone? Give them to me.
Max Leclerc Sainz.
Max Leclerc, Science. Okay, cool. So, you see now. Okay, so I've got Max, Perez, Leclerc. Okay, my theory
That's
is.
probably going to be. Yeah, that's probably going
Yeah.
to be the more realistic one.
My theory is no, but Max Leclerc Science is a pretty realistic one if you consider Perez hasn't exactly. I mean, if he qualifies again in 12th, I mean, he's not going to make second. My theory though is that this podium that he received now is just good for his ego a little bit and his confidence. And my theory
He's
is
not
that
back to normal again.
yeah, my theory is also like you can't have 4 weeks in a row where you don't make Q3, mate. Like surely not, right? So I'm thinking this will be the weekend where he sort of makes a comeback. He does still have a rocket ship. That car is still the best on the grid. Silverstone is a good track for that car, I think. In theory, it should be a good track for that car. It should suit that car. I mean, every track suits the Red Bull at the moment. But anyways,
Yeah.
and then my theory with Leclerc being on the podium is just simple. Ferrari look to have made the step up. And although I think there are rumors for more upgrades of Aston Martin, I'm not sure if it's Silverstone, but I'm sure I heard something about it being at Silverstone. I still think Ferrari have a chance to pull through. The only downside here is, was Austria track specific for Ferrari? We will find out soon. But if not, Leclerc, Ferrari have made a step up. I do expect Leclerc then to be on the podium. So that is my podium prediction for the Silverstone Grand Prix. I can't wait. I love Silverstone. It's usually an epic race every single time. In fact, I don't even know if I've ever watched a Silverstone race that was like boring, to be honest. Anyways, BT, I don't have much more to say except for that we need to rate the race. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts before we rate the race.
Oh,
Nope.
no final thoughts
Me
on
neither.
my side.
We have spoken way too much. It's time for some coffee. Time to clear the throat a little bit. And in BT's case, time to go watch Grand Tour and sleep. Okay. Rate the race, BT, out of 10.
A whopping 8. Give it an 8.
8 on the dot. Okay, cool. I have given it a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10. Pretty simple. I know we're not really going to give too much into it, but just pretty simple why I've given it a 9 out of 10. To me, it was the perfect race, but FIA made it not that. if that makes sense.
That's why I gave it the 10. I was going to give it the 9
Yeah.
as well. That's why I gave it the 8 because of the
Yeah.
track limits and the penalties after
Yeah.
the race. The comedy
But
was on point, though.
yeah,
The
comedy.
comedy
Well,
was
then
on
give it the extra point. Make it 9. Come on. No, no. Okay, guys. Okay, cool. So listen, that was us at Break at the Apex. Once again, guys, please give us a follow or a 5-star rating wherever you're watching this. We really, really, really appreciate it. It would help us tremendously. Thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching. This is probably one of the longer podcasts that we've done, but as you guys know, there was a lot to talk about and a lot to cover. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna let BT go and watch Grand Tour, and I'm gonna go and have a cup of coffee and then go and climb in my warm bed. Have a very good evening, guys, or good
Nice.
day whenever you are watching, wherever
Cheers,
you're
guys.
watching. Cheers. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Cheers, bye.